Well, guys, we have David here with us. David, how's it going, man?
It's going great, bro. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, anytime. Listen, it's my pleasure to have you on. And I wanted to bring you on because I feel like you could give some great value. There's a lot of people in our audience that are newer to real estate, and I feel they have the mindset that they have to have a lot of money, right? They have to have a lot of money to get in real estate, and they have to have a lot of experience. But it's cool. I was reading your bio, and I got on your Facebook whenever Kimberly introduced us, and dude, what you've been able to do in such a little amount of time is mind-boggling, dude. So what I want you to do is, if you could, I know we're jumping in pretty quick to this conversation, but let's just chat about your journey, man. Who you are, where you came from. Let's start back when you were a kid, right? Let's get to know the
Sure.
real David and give us
Sure.
the whole story of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, man. So taking it back, I grew up in Michigan, outside of Detroit. Um, Dad was a dentist. Mom stayed at home, and had a good life coming up. I was always a really hyper kid. I was crazy. I had so much energy, man, so much energy. And so I was always getting in trouble at school, and I was always, I always had to be doing something. And so when I turned 13, my mom's like, man, I got to get some energy out of this kid. And she's like, why don't you mow the neighbor's lawn? And so I did that. And she's like, oh, this other neighbor wants you to mow their lawn. I was like, oh, cool. And then so I started door knocking, and I built this landscaping company kind of out of nothing. When I was 13, and then all the way through high school, I had a pretty successful landscaping company. And so that kind of gave me that entrepreneurial spirit. It was
Right.
in, I feel like it was in my blood. And so I just needed a little nudge. And so, fortunately my mom kind of gave me that nudge, which was awesome. And, fast forward a little bit, went through college, did a couple internships in like investment banking, consulting. And that was my junior year. I had a couple pretty solid job offers my junior year, and I turned them all down because I wanted to go into real estate. And I'd caught the bug. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, like I'm sure you've
Right.
read, and probably a lot of your listeners, and listen to some other podcasts. And it's like, dude, there's no reason I can't go straight into real estate. Like, I don't need a job first. It's just limiting beliefs. I was like, man, I need to go make a bunch of money in a job, and then I can invest in real estate.
This was during college. You said this was during
This is during
college?
college. Yeah, this is like my junior year when I had done. I took about 6 months off a class, and I worked for some investment banking firms. And during that, I met some people. There were some partners at the firm that owned some multifamily, and some other people I'd met that owned real estate. And I was like, I don't really want to do investment banking. I mean, it's good money, but that's I want to do real estate. And so I kind of jumped right in. I think they were really surprised that last day they took me out to lunch to some of the partners, and they're like, yeah, we want to, make you a job offer. And I was like, well, guys, I appreciate it, but I want to go into real estate. And they're like, what? They're like, nobody's ever turned this job offer down before. I was like, it's the first time for everything, man. I mean, I really want to go into real estate. That's what I want to do. And so that's what I did.
So your family had no prior experience. You had nothing. You just read a book
Mm-hmm.
and started researching. And
Yeah.
dude, that's
It.
crazy. People would die to be in a position you were in, dude. You know that, and like that's crazy. Like there's so many people, but
It's crazy. Yeah, it is crazy. But the actually crazy part is like all those people can be in that position. They just got to put
exactly.
themselves in that spot,
Well, I was gonna say it's cool because you had a passion, you had something in your heart, and you went after it anyway. There's a lot of people that whenever they feel that nudge, they push it away or push it aside, or well, I got a good job offer, I'll just go here instead. So that's really
Yeah.
interesting that at such a young age, which I guess is good. They say at a young age, you can take more risk and stuff. That I found that
Yeah.
very interesting. That even at a young age, you were all in. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's my whole philosophy on life. You got to go all in all the time. If you're not, I mean, you're not living to your fullest potential.
Definitely. That's awesome, man. So you read this book, you declined, one of the best job offers you got at the time. And so what happened from there? Can you tell us a little bit about where you went from there? Did you, and I know that your first property was a 12-unit apartment complex, right?
Yeah, it
That's,
was.
that's awesome. So how did you go from reading Rich Dad Poor Dad to getting your first deal done?
So I got my real estate license, actually, which I let lapse after like the first year. I never renewed it because I knew I didn't need it, but I got it because I thought that was, you hear from everybody though, like, get your real estate license. Like that's the first step. So I went and got it. I never used it. I wholesaled a little bit. I started, I was cold calling owners, foreclosures, stuff like that. I did like 5 wholesale deals. I was like, man, I hate this. I thought I loved real estate, but I hate cold calling people, and I hate doing single family deals. It just doesn't excite me. They're
Right.
like there's and for some people they love it, and that's great, right? But just for me, at least personally, I wanted to do big deals. I wanted to do like massive, like 10, 20, 50, $100 million deals. Now, you can't start off there, but that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so I really wanted to do apartments and multifamily. After reading up on it, I was like, that seems like the best way to go. I don't want to do commercial office. I want to do apartments. And so I kind of did a little bit of wholesaling, and then I cut it off. I was like, if I want to do what I actually want to be doing, I need to do the same thing I did when I cut that job offer off. I need to just draw a line in the sand. You're not doing it. And I had like no money at this point still. I made a couple $1,000 from some wholesale deals.
Right.
But I said, hey, I could live at home with my parents for a little while. I could live cheap, living off of like $700 a month. And I could, I've got about 7 months to live, if I absolutely needed it. I've got about that much money saved up, a couple $1,000, and I'm, no matter what happens, I'm going to find a deal, a multifamily property, and I'm going to buy it within that time frame. And that's going to set me up. And that's what my mindset and philosophy was at that time.
Wow, man,
And
you're right. You are all in, man. That's awesome. I love that philosophy. That's cool.
well, I mean, what else, what else can happen if I don't
Well,
do it?
there's a bunch of people that say they're about that, but they're not.
Mhm.
There's a bunch of people, they say,
Yeah,
oh,
no, you're right.
I'm going all in, but it's cool to see, like, especially at such a young age. How old are you right now?
I'm 25.
25. Okay, so I'm 23, so we're pretty close in age, and
Hell
it's
yeah.
cool because there's a lot of people that talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk.
They
And
don't
I
walk
feel
the
like
walk.
that's all you did. So
They like talking, man. They love talking. They don't like walking.
right, and so it's cool. You jump right in, and so how did it take 6 or 7 months to get that first deal, or what'd that look like?
Yeah, so I think that was in November 2016. I closed on my first, it was 2 deals. I went under contract on, I was just underwriting deals and putting offers out like crazy because that's what I was good at. I'd come from a little bit of a financial background doing the banking and whatnot. And so I was just looking at deals left and right, talking to brokers, and really, in my head, it's like, this is simple. If I don't find a deal, there's no money to be made. So I
Right,
didn't really spend a lot of time lining up investors or anything like that. Other people, I didn't have an attorney really or anything like lined up. I just kind of went for the deal. And I was like, okay, if I get a deal in a contract, then I'll figure the rest out. And
right,
so I ended up getting within 2 weeks, I think I had an offer accepted on 212 units. They're on the same street, different brokers. They're like a couple blocks away in this area. It's like a C+ area. It's nothing special. And I got one offer accepted, and then like a week later I got the other, and I was like, oh shit, well, not only do I not have the money to buy the first building, but I certainly don't have the money to buy the second building. So that was interesting. And basically what I did was in a day, I went out and I looked up, got some referrals on an attorney, and I got some referrals on some banks that I could go to. And, I started writing down a list of all the people I knew that had money. And then I just started calling people while I was working on putting that contract together, and then during the due diligence period. So about 90 days later, I closed on both of those deals.
so the people you reached out to, that's very interesting, man. I'm loving this story so far. I feel like this gives hope for everybody that's out there that's, just now getting started, and they have this dream, and, they read Grant Cardone, they read all these books, right, about multifamily, and this kind of gives them hope. And so let's talk about, you decided you got them under contract, and then you start finding investors. What was the first reaction of people when you went to them? Did they already have that trust with you, like the people you contacted to be private investors, or was that something you kind of had to convince them, or what would that look like?
Oh, dude, 0 track record. I'm 20 years old. Like there was practically no trust there. And so it was very difficult to convince people to invest. There was a lot of meetings, a lot of phone calls, a lot of no's. And what it took was refining my strategy and just putting together a good plan, and just using logic to convince people this is a good investment. Like, hey, I'm buying it for 45 a door. The rents are $600 a month. I'm gonna put 5,000 a unit into it, and I'm gonna get the rents up to 750. And
Right.
here's the neighbor that's already getting 750. So it's possible. And if I do that, the value of the property is going to go from 550 to 750 or, whatever it was.
Right.
It's
Right.
a smaller property. So um, that's kind of how it went. And in the end, I sold to people that were pretty logical and that understood that and that were in real estate or understood real estate a little bit. Maybe they flipped houses full-time or part-time, or I had one guy that owned a state farm agency, still invests with me today, so like it was just a grind. It was a
Right.
grind to convince people.
Well, that's awesome, man. That's cool. So my question is, you said you went and found attorneys. Was that attorneys for the legal side of finding the partners, or what was that all about? I'm sure our listeners will have some questions about that side of it.
Yeah. So once you get an offer accepted on a property, you're going to go through a process of putting the purchase agreement together. And it's a
Mhm.
little more complex than single family where you just draw your state, you have that standard state purchase agreement
Right.
contract or whatever, like Texas, it's the Texas 1-4 residential, contract. So it's a little different in
Right.
commercial.
Because commercial, yeah.
Yeah. And so you got to have somebody to do that, negotiate that, and understand that. And so I guess the first attorney I hired wasn't that adept in it, but he worked out and it worked and we got it done. But you also have to have somebody, once I get into it and start raising capital from investors, we put together something called a PPM. It's a private placement memorandum
Okay.
and an operating agreement for the entity. And that outlines the responsibilities of myself, the manager, and the limited partners or the investors. What are the responsibilities? What are the returns going to be for each person? How are you getting paid out? When are you getting paid out? What happens if A, B, C, D, E, F, and G happens?
Right.
It just
So
describes
did you
all.
have any knowledge of that going in? Like you just kind of was like, we'll build our wings on the way down, right? Like,
Yeah, no, I had never done it before. I'd read about it and listened to podcasts. People talk about it, just like somebody might hear me talking about it now. It's that general, but you get into it and you talk to an attorney and they kind of lead you through it and understand. And,
awesome.
and now, you get to a point where you've done dozens of them and it's like, okay, now you're kind of telling attorneys which way to take it. And so, yeah, it's just a
Awesome. So
learning process.
we'll talk a little bit more about the details of how to underwrite deals and things like that here at the very end. But so you went from, this 12 units there was it 12 or 24 total?
It was 24 total. It was two 12-unit
Okay.
properties.
So 24, that was his first deal, guys, 24 units. That's amazing. So how did you scale that from there? Like, how did you go, like, how many doors do you have now? Like 1,000, something like that or more?
Under 1,000, not currently because I sold like 500 in the last 6 months, but I've bought just under 1,000 total.
Okay. So
Yeah.
how did you go from, 24 to that, in just 3-4 years, or maybe 5 years? I don't even remember, but it's like 4 years, right?
About 3 years. Yeah. So my next deal after that was 96 units. I sent a mailer to a guy, he owned $1 billion in real estate. Probably
Wow.
shouldn't be taking the time to talk to a kid like me. I was 21. And this was like 2 months after I closed on those first two deals. I got a hit on this mailer I sent to the guy. And he called me up from his penthouse in Miami, and he's talking to me, and I didn't really know how successful he was. It wasn't until after a few conversations, we built some rapport, I really figured out, like, dude, this guy's net worth is like $500 million. He's like very,
Dang.
very successful. Yeah. And so it was 96 units. It was his oldest and smallest property. He built it 40 years ago. He was like 71 years old. He built it 40 years ago, and we just built some good rapport. He told me he's interested in selling. I went out and looked at the property. It was clearly being managed poorly. His on-site staff was not good staff. The maintenance guy was a drunk. The manager was friends with all the tenants, and their rents were $200-$300 below market. Ended up being like 500 below market on some units. I got some really great rent increases, and so ended up striking a deal with him for about $4.2 million on the price. It was like 43 a door. He probably could have sold it, within that year for probably closer to 5 million. So he gave me a good discount. And
Right.
after I bought it, I went and I actually met the guy finally after I closed, and I asked him, I was like, dude, why'd you sell this to me for a discount? He's like, you know what? I didn't really need the extra couple $100,000. I just liked you. And I was like, what? Are you like, you didn't need the extra, I need a couple extra $100,000. But so, and I was like, thanks for hooking me up. But no, but really at the end of the day, it was because I'd built a good relationship with him, and he was willing to make that deal, and he liked working with me. And so, that taught me that in business, relationships are everything, period, end of story. That's
Hmm.
it. It's
Yeah,
relationships.
I agree with that, man. How would you say, what's the key components to building those relationships? Do you feel like, are there anything you try to do? I know relationships are relationship, right? Listening, just making sure you're attentive to what they're saying and stuff. But is there anything like particular, especially with finding private investors, right? Private lenders. Is there anything relationship wise that you try to do or that you would recommend for people just starting out?
Be a good person. Just be honest and integrity and be a good person. And you will have a very easy time building good long term relationships. Be friendly, be fun, like enjoy the business. Like, we're not just here to be so serious. Like, have a good time, have fun, uh, you know, uh, get on the phone with people. Don't just email all the time. Like, me and I have a great relationship with all my attorneys now, where, we'll hang out outside of work. Like, so, it's all about, I think, being personable, but at the core of it, it's working with good people, being a good person, having a good moral compass and integrity, and that will carry you a long way.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. It's so simple, but it's a lot of times people overlook it. People get busy, and maybe you're listening right now, the audience, you guys are listening, and you just get so caught up in life, and you never take the time to really hone those relationships in and build those relationships. So if you get anything out of this podcast, is be a good person, like David said, but also take the time and evaluate, hey, how are my relationships with those banks? Am I going out of my way and doing things for them? For me, my bank's done wonderful things for me. How can I, keep that relationship thriving? And not just banks, I'm talking about anybody. It could be your wife, or maybe your kids, or in every area. So maybe David, for you, it's Kim, are you,
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
but no, it's cool. That's awesome, man. Good tips. And so let's get into a little bit of the new construction side. So I want you guys to check out David's Facebook. I'll put the link below, but he just started new construction on 50 units. Am I right?
It's 50. Yep. Yep.
50 units, man. So I wanted to ask you, what's the difference between, new construction in multifamily, 50 doors versus buying 50 doors, right? I'm sure there's a lot more work, or am I wrong? Or
It's a lot different. Really, the part that's different is everything up to when you finish building it, right? You buy an existing property, it's going to be all the same after when you're operating it as a new construction. It's just everything up to that, right? So we bought the land cash about a year ago, which was nice. So we didn't have any carrying costs. We got it entitled and approved by the city for 50 apartments. And so that process takes months in itself. That takes 3, 6, 9 months, depending on what city you're in. It can take, if you're actually in Austin, which is a pain in the ass to deal with that city, it could be well over a year
oh
for the
wow,
entitlement process. And so, that part kind of depends. And then depending on what you're doing with financing, it could take, another 3 months, 6 months. If you do a HUD loan, which is the best kind of financing you could do for apartments, normally on larger deals, like 100 plus units, you get 40-year amortization.
wow,
You get, it's a 40-year term, 40-year amortization. So it's like the longest loan. Rates right now are sub 3%, interest only for up to 10 years sometimes. So insane loans, but they take 12 months to get.
right.
So we're doing one of those on our next new developments, 150 apartments. We're just starting that right now. But the 50 unit, we used a local credit union to finance it.
Gotcha. So is there like okay, let me ask you this side of it. So what class are you building? Are these like class A units or that you're building, or is it, because I know you said you buy some that are like class C and stuff like that in the past, right? Do you still buy in those classes, or what's your criteria when you're buying? Everybody has different, requirements and criteria, but
Sure.
what do you look for?
Yeah, so what we're building is not class A. We're building like B plus, I'd say. It's not, we don't have the big clubhouse and then the pool and all the amenities, at
Right.
least at this 50 unit. It's more of like a low key new build. We're trying to be $200 below the rent of the competitors, but we're also building it a lot cheaper because of that. We're building it, 10, 20, $30,000 a door less than what somebody else is building for. We're all in at like 130 a door on it. Our acquisition criteria, really we look for just value add deals, 100 plus units in a core or primary markets or the suburbs of a primary market. So like, let's say Dallas, for example, anywhere within like an hour of Dallas, or like, a
Okay.
neighboring city or suburb. We like stuff built after 1970, preferably after 1980. And that's for construction deficiencies that we find in a lot of 60s and older properties. We don't like dealing with plumbing, electrical is outdated. We don't want to deal with it. I don't really buy anything with a flat roof. Pain in the ass,
Right.
they
Yeah.
cost more to replace and they last half as long. So they're not as fun to do. And there's new technology that makes them last longer, but it's not as interesting to me if it has a flat roof, particularly because on the exit, I'm always thinking about whenever I buy a property, what's my exit,
Right.
right?
So how long do you look to hold these properties?
3 to 5 years, but honestly, a lot of the properties I've sold in under 3 years. So we normally
Okay.
project 3 to 5 years, but if the market's been great, and so if we can make a lot of money for our investors and ourselves by selling it in 2 years, we'll do it. I mean, I sold a property in 6 months once.
Oh,
It was
wow.
160 units. Yeah, I flipped it in 6 months, and that was crazy. But it just depends, right? That was a weird situation, so it just made sense.
But normally 3 to 5 years is what you guys look at.
Yeah, normally 3 to 5 years. Yep.
And just so you guys that you're listening, if you don't know anything about multifamily, he said he buys a lot of value add. So what he means by that is exactly what it sounds like. Can he add value to that property? Whether that's through re-blacktopping, the blacktop, adding new roof, new windows. What are some other ways that you guys add value to properties, David?
Yeah, I guess, and to give a little more definition to that, commercial real estate, for anyone who doesn't know, is different from residential. It's not, the value is not based off of 3-bed, 2-bath, pool in the backyard, on, an XYZ neighborhood. That's not why it's valued how it's valued. That's a part of it. That's I'd say about 25% of it. 75% of the value of commercial real estate is derived from the income and how much money it makes.
Right.
The value is directly based on the amount of income it makes, with a number called NOI, net operating income. And it's basically your top line revenue minus your operating expenses equals your net operating income. And then we use a cap rate or a multiple of that to
Right.
determine the value. And so when we say value add, I'm looking at ways I can decrease expenses and increase income, because that will directly take the value of my property from 6 million to 11 million, for example, right? And,
Yeah,
and,
that's a
and
great way to
not that
explain.
long of a period of time.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it, man. That's cool. And so let's ask this. Let's say there's somebody on here, and they always want to get into multifamily real estate investing. How would you suggest they learn? Like, are there certain books you read, or do you have content that you give out? Like, what's that look like? Because actually one of our people in our community reached out, and he said, his name's Jeff Sims. He said, hey, I know you're doing this podcast. Ask him, what books would he read? How would you go about, getting to that point?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel which has a lot of good videos, I would say, on getting started and some general strategies and ways to get into the business, how to underwrite deals in depth, stuff like that. So check out my YouTube channel. I would say there's a book it's by my friend Rod Cleef. I think it's called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Multifamily Investing. And he has a good book and podcast, all multifamily. There's another one called, what's it called? Crushing It in Apartments and Commercial Real Estate, I think. Another family. And then my favorite one, which is what I read when I first started, was called The ABCs of Real Estate Investing. And that's by Ken McElroy. He owns like 10,000 apartments. He works with, it's a Robert Kiyosaki. It's like a rich dad advisor's book called The ABCs of Real Estate Investing. Yeah, it's a great book, and it's mostly on apartments. So I would say check out those and really just dive in. And the biggest thing is you got to like it. If you're like a financial minded person and you like, doing big deals, I don't do 100 flips a year. I'm not that guy. I do 3 to 7 deals a year, but they're very large deals, $10 to $30 million deals. Right. So it's a little different.
That's interesting, man. Well, it's cool because I feel like everybody has different preferences. Those people like flipping. They like being hands-on and all the projects and stuff. But everybody's different, so you just need to find your niche. And what you do is, through experiment, you may get into wholesaling. Like he said, he hated cold calling. To be honest, I don't like that either. So
yeah.
and it's just like you got to find your area, but you only can find that specialized area until, you jump in and try it. So let's talk about long-term goals, man. I love asking these questions and picking the brains of really successful people. Like, what's your goal? What's one with real estate, and then personal goals? Okay. So let's start with real estate. What's like the overarching goal for you all?
I think it's always changing. I want, right now, my my biggest goal in real estate is I want $1 billion in real estate by the time I'm 35. And so I've got 10 years to make that happen. So we'll see.
Oh,
I'm a
the
10th,
rate you're going now, man, you'll hit it.
10th of the way there. Yeah. That's a real estate goal. Personal goal, my biggest personal goal is I want to be very successful and create a lot of wealth. But I think a lot of that is based around the fact that in the end, I really want to help a lot of people, want to donate a lot, and I want to start a foundation. And so I really just want to make an impact. I love, getting messages every day, every week, that I've inspired people, other young people to get into this business, or, people of any age to get into this business and become entrepreneurs. Doesn't matter what you're doing. I'm like a pure blood entrepreneur. I love it. And so
Right.
anyone else that's like that, I want to inspire, especially in youth. I would say that's an area where I'd love to inspire people, and I just want to make a big impact.
That's awesome, man. So like whenever you say you want to give back and you want to start a foundation, is there any like specific areas, or you just want to help in general, or what's that look like? I'm just always curious to hear people's passions and what they envision for that stuff.
Yeah, well, so one thing I did last year is I went to Guatemala for a week and I built a school with some of my
Awesome.
friends. So that was great. I think I'd love to do that. I think a big part of it is probably youth, inner city youth, educating them on, ways to really get out and expand their mindset on, you don't have to go to school and go to college, get a degree. Like there's other ways to produce income and get yourself out of those situations. So I think I'd like to do a lot of that. And then, there's a lot of situations where, and a lot of people that rent our apartments are like single mothers and they struggle, right? It's hard to take care of your kids and you're a single mother and
Right.
you're living and you're just trying to pay rent. I'd love to have programs in my apartments where I can, give, one day I could really afford to give big discounts. If I own the properties on my own, I don't have a bunch of investors, I could really afford to help people out in different ways. I think it'll give some leverage to do that.
Definitely. That's awesome, man. That's cool to hear your heart and everything. It's actually cool. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, I went to Guatemala as well. I love that
Oh,
place. It's
nice.
awesome.
What part?
Antigua.
Antigua. Okay. I went a little farther. We drove through there, and then I think it was another like 4 or 5 hours up into the mountains. We
Oh, wow.
drove and we built a school up there. Yeah, it was in the middle of nowhere. It was
Do you
crazy.
travel, do you travel a lot or outside the country or?
I travel quite a bit now. I didn't before. In the past 2 years, I have started to. A lot of, I own a travel networking company called Secret X, and we do 1 to 2 trips a year. We're going to Jamaica in a month. We did Aruba and Cabo last year. We get a bunch of just high level business people together, entrepreneurs, and we just go to somewhere just dope location, and we just have a great time together. And
That's awesome, man. That's
yeah,
cool. I love traveling. So maybe one day I'll be on one of those trips with you, dude. It'd be
you
sweet.
should. Yeah, next year. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome, man. Well, let's end this out with just some final advice for people that are just wanting to get started. I know you said you have a YouTube channel, you have some books, but I guess a lot of times people, they think, whenever it comes to raising private money, it gets scary legally, getting all the legal side set up with it, especially if you're getting like 4 or 5 investors or more. What would be your advice, just general advice for somebody that if they came to you and said, hey man, where should I start or what should I do to get into multifamily?
Yeah, don't let it intimidate you. It's like anything else. You've gotta take baby steps, learn each piece of the puzzle, and it just gets easier and easier over time. At the end of the day, all you're doing is you're buying a property with investors' money and maybe some of your own, and you're determining how much cash flow does that make so that I could pay out these investors and pay out myself and make funds, make money on that. So it's kind of simple when you break it down. You just expect to spend a lot of time on it. For the past 4 years, the only reason I've been able to do this is I work a lot of hours. I put in 80 hours a week every single week, and I love it. I'm passionate about it. I'm becoming a master in it, and I really enjoy doing it. And
That's
so
awesome.
I would say that if it's something you really want to do, just expect to be in it long term. It's not you're not going to make money over the short term. Not a lot of money. You're not going to get rich quick. It's not like it sounds great, yeah, but you expect to put a lot of time into it and put several years into it, really to start creating some wealth. But if you do, you can make a lot of wealth.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
awesome, man. That's cool because actually I was listening to a guy, I can't remember where I heard this, but he was talking about how he has an acquisitions team where they evaluate deals and just a bunch of stuff. And I think he had 3 people and he paid them and somebody was like, "Oh, so how many deals you do a year?" And he was like, "Oh, usually we lock up about 2 or 3 a year," or something like that. It was
Yeah.
funny. And,
Yeah.
and and the person was blown away. They're like, "What? You pay them that much?" And or not that much, but you have them on a team and you guys look at that many deals, you only get 2 or 3, which you guys say you do like what, 5 to 7 maybe a year right now.
Yeah, 5 to 7. Dude, I looked at 450 deals last year. We underwrote 250, and I offered on 125. I only bought 3 in
Wow,
2019.
man.
Yeah, we look at a lot of deals. I have a team of 10 people that cold call every week straight to owners. I have a couple underwriters, acquisitions team, and so we got a whole operation. But we got to look at a lot of deals to find the good ones. I mean, anyone can go out there and just buy a property, right? If
Right.
you're being reckless, but if you want to buy good ones, and I'd rather do less deals, but really good deals.
Yeah, that's what I tell
So
people. I do a lot of flipping myself, but I'm wanting
okay.
to segment into your realm, into that space. And so I've been doing a lot of research. And I don't know if you know Michael Blanc,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm friends with him. And so I've been wanting to transition. And it's just like I tell people whenever they get in flipping, they're like, "Well, how do we find deals? What do you?" I say, "Listen, anybody can find a house to flip, but good flippers can find excellent ones. They focus on those
Correct.
excellent ones because, I would rather, spend my time looking for the excellent ones that are going to make me 50,000 than a bunch of them that are only going to make me, 10 or 15,000.
Yep.
So, it's very amazing to see your perseverance and, just the mindset behind it all. I applaud you for that, man. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you
Appreciate
have so my question is, and I meant to ask this earlier, but went out my brain. Are you in just one market or do you do this across the whole country?
I own in a couple cities in Texas, Atlanta, Indianapolis, Metro Detroit. Those are the
Awesome.
4 markets. I'm targeting a couple others like Charlotte and a few other markets, but right now, yeah, just in those.
What's your thoughts on Nashville? Everybody says Nashville is a booming place. You got any
Nashville
words
is
on?
great. Oh, I had a buddy that bought a property 2 years ago in Nashville for like 9 million, and he just sold it for 15 million. And he barely did anything to it. It was, I mean, it's booming. It's hot. It's probably hard to find good deals there because there's so much money going there. But
Right.
um,
So how do
it,
you, I want to ask you this. How do you think this COVID pandemic, all this hoopla, has it affected multifamily any, or what's your thoughts on that? I just want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It directly affects it when you talk about like unemployment, right, and tenants being able to pay their rent or not. I think the good thing about apartments is people always need a place to live. There's high demand still for apartments in most cities compared to the supply, and really apartments is they're the last thing that people stop paying. The same as your mortgage, right? You're going to stop paying for Netflix or going out to fancy restaurants or traveling before you stop paying your rent. And
Right.
so it's like the last line of defense, which is great because it's something that people every month are really focused on making sure that they pay their rent. And
Right.
we put pressure on them to do that. And so, it's a really strong, stable. We've had 95% plus collections every month on average over the past 6-7 months.
Oh,
So
awesome,
our
man.
properties are doing great.
And I'm
Keep in
sure
mind
that's
that the
from,
government's.
I'm sure that's from really good management as well. Do you guys,
Oh yeah,
do you guys manage everything in-house or what's that look like?
we use all third-party management.
Okay.
Yep, yep. I
Gotcha.
mean, it's helped too that the government's been pumping money into the system, right? But overall, most of our apartments are very highly occupied, and a lot of our tenants are still working. And they talk about crazy high unemployment rates. I think that's very temporary, and a lot of people are now back to work and earning money and able to pay their rent. So right now, our properties are doing fine.
Definitely, man. Well, that's cool. Well, guys, I'm going to let David go. He's a busy dude. I know I'm probably taking too much of his time. So David, man, thanks for coming on. I'm going to put David Toupin's links to his Instagram, his YouTube, Facebook, so you guys can just click below. Listen, you're going to want to check this guy's profiles out. And actually, I don't know, I seen this in your bio, David, whenever I was reading through, but he has a really good multifamily deal analyzer that you may want to check out as well. So if you're interested in that, there will be a link below. And you're actually converting that to like a web-based platform, right? You're doing that like, have you
Yeah,
ever done
I
like any
am.
software like that before or what? Like, it's pretty
No,
crazy.
it's my first foray into software. I mean, the spreadsheet's absolutely taken off and exploded. I've sold well over $100,000 of the spreadsheet in the last year, just word of mouth. A
Wow.
lot of people have been using it. They like it. It's just efficient and it works well. And I built it really just for myself. I never expected to sell it. And so once that started happening, I was thinking, for a while, I was like, man, software could really solve this problem, because a lot of people not only are intimidated by getting into multifamily because of the analysis side of things, and they're maybe not good at it. They're not numbers or Excel people. Um, and also there are problems in Excel. There's a lot of people that make really junky spreadsheets out there that don't work, that have problems with the equations, and you're making multi-million-dollar decisions based off of a spreadsheet.
Oh yeah.
So I want to solve that problem. And then really it's called Real Estate Lab. It's going to be launching first quarter next year, and it's going to include, not only a full suite analyzer in the software online, but you could send custom letters of intent, offers through there. You can track all your deals on a map. There's a lot of really cool features. It's going to be a full acquisition suite for multifamily companies and multifamily
Gotcha.
developers. Yeah,
That's awesome, man. Well, I'll include, if you don't mind, I'll include the link to your deal analyzer. If you
sure.
have that available, I'll put that down below too.
Yep.
And I'm definitely going to get that real estate lab once it comes out, because, we're
Yeah,
wanting to buy
you'll
more
love it.
multifamily, man. So I'm going to get in that. I'm excited. And let's stay connected, bro. Let's, just stay connected here. And hopefully maybe here in the next year or two, we'll have you back on, and just hear your updates, your progress, and
Sure.
see if you're at that $1 billion mark yet.
that would be pretty cool, and we're working towards it. So thanks for having me on, man. It's been a pleasure.
Definitely, guys. Well, thanks. Hey, everybody that's listening, if you like content like this, if you really enjoy these podcasts as much as I do, please subscribe, leave us a review. We would love to hear your input in the comments below, or even in the review section. We do these totally free. And listen, David came on here. He poured out his heart for 30, 45 minutes, however long we were on here. And just do us a favor, subscribe to our channel. It's easy to do. All you do is click the button below. So we appreciate you all. Next week, we'll have another episode for you. So make sure you're here Tuesday morning for the Real Estate Success Strategies podcast. We'll see you soon.